The system, to me, sets you up to add to the recidivism rate, not only because you're incarcerated, isolated from society, but because you sit here like, who do I ask for help?
They are the men and women working to get their lives on track, describing the constant struggle they face transitioning from prison to the outside.
For me, it's not about just getting them a job. It's about having a career for them, like not just a job, but a living wage.
This week on The Race, we'll show you the organizations working to build a better path forward for a system some describe as broken. Coffee is such a key part of my day. Not only do I need it to kind of get a little kick to get things going, but kind of symbolizes a fresh start to the day. And that's a key part of the story we're about to tell you here outside of Sacramento, California, because coffee is serving as a fresh start for the people we're going to introduce you to. And it's a fresh start in a way that they hope will put them on the right track for the rest of their lives.
Always wash our hands. Baristas do not wear gloves.
There's a sense of pride Monica Marolis takes when an order comes in.
I would say, how are you this morning, and what can I get for you? What would you like today?
A pride not just in the coffee she makes, but the fact she can do it while serving time here.
Being trusted, it is a privilege to be here.
She works at Redemption Coffee.
And this is our steamer.
A fully functioning specialty coffee shop inside the Rio Casumnes Correctional Center. You almost forget that there are just walls around us right now.
That's the idea. When my students are in here, this is not jail.
For more than 20 years, Jamie Mason trained people to become elite-level baristas. Since 2020, she's been teaching those skills to women convicted of nonviolent offenses serving time at this Sacramento County jail. What are the main things they should be able to do?
Anything a specialty coffee shop requires of them, whether it's pulling shots of espresso from pouring a heart on top of someone's cappuccino.
You wouldn't ask why someone is here?
Never. That's their personal history, and if they feel safe enough or confident enough to tell me why they're in here, then that's okay too. This isn't a place where I'm judging anyone.
Jail staff are Redemption Coffee's customers.
Whole group right here.
Yep. The goal is for people like Monica to be able to find work when they're released.
That is my goal, to get out and take care of things and continue my path on sobriety with AA, because I never attended AA before.
The average pay for a barista in California is just above minimum wage, according to the job site Indeed. Jamie says she has former students now in the industry who are making as much as $30 an hour. Numbers of opportunity in an issue where statistics often show adversity. The unemployment rate for formerly incarcerated people is 26%. That's more than 13 times the national average. Roughly 7 in 10 people released from prison will be arrested within 3 years of their release, according to the Department of Justice. What are the big challenges as to why those numbers are like that?
A lot of people who come into custody, it's been a lifestyle with them for so long. So we really try to give them kind of a structure in their learning of what can make them successful when they get out, and kind of changing that mindset of, oh, I'm just going to be back in a few months anyway.
Deputy Larson Brunsfold oversees the reentry programs at this jail.
There was a long time where it was that, throw them away, lock them away, throw away the key kind of a deal. And research is showing more and more that it's not something that works, and just kind of keeps them coming back. And so having these sort of programs really is kind of slowly growing.
According to the Rand Corporation, a nonprofit think tank, inmates who took part in educational programs while incarcerated were 43% less likely to reoffend.
I want to be able to, give these women an opportunity to thrive, not just a job, but a living wage, and sometimes higher than a living wage job to start off with. And coffee does that. You don't need a college education.
In the 3 years Redemption Coffee has been open, Jamie has trained roughly 20 students. She says right now 5 are working in the coffee industry.
A sense of you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
For Monica, each day and each order are steps toward walking through these gates and finding a way to make sure she doesn't return. Of course, this program is just one example of what's being done to try and help people find a job for when they're no longer incarcerated. But the big question is, what can be done to truly make a dent in the recidivism rates that we're seeing nationwide? That's something that Scripps News correspondent Dan Grossman looked into.
New beginnings don't just happen. For people like Brian Johnson, they're unlocked.
Oh, it's open. It's been open. They're gonna come upstairs.
Through diligent steps that are taken in homes away from public view.
This is the house on Mason Avenue. This is Mason Avenue. We call it the Mason.
Today is a big day for Brian. He's 33 and is 2 months out of prison, and he's getting ready for a job interview stocking shelves at Walmart.
I think the job help with showing people that I'm changing.
If he succeeds, it will make him the exception to the rule, since many of the people in Brian's very position don't succeed.
The system, to me, sets you up to add to the recidivism rate. That's what, I did a paper on this when I was in prison, right? I was telling them that I had to been like probably 27, 28, and I had a few more years to go home. I was excited, but at the same time, you're sad. Not only because you're incarcerated, isolated from society, because you sit here like, who do I ask for help?
As Brian learned, help doesn't always come to those who are searching for it the most. Nationwide, more than half of the formerly incarcerated are unable to find stable employment within their first year of return, and 3/4 of them are rearrested within their first 3 years of release. Some might write that off, saying it's due to the choices these individuals make. Brian says there's more to it. Sometimes those choices are the only ones available for survival.
I feel that there's a lot to be done. I feel that there should be more avenues for people to talk what we call real talk.
Lawrence Bartley is with the Marshall Project, a nonprofit journalism institution that shines a light on the criminal justice system. One of the shortcomings in society is a lack of adequate reentry programs that the American Psychological Association says leaves men and women with minimal preparation, which makes their reentry into communities challenging. Formerly incarcerated people are 10 times more likely to be homeless than the general population. They are also half as likely to get a call back from prospective employers due to stigma and laws that allow employers and landlords to refuse people based on criminal records.
This is Screaming Ice Cream. This is my main job right here. My cousin started a shirt line.
Things Brian experienced when he was placed into a homeless shelter for 2 weeks upon his release.
For me to put a little money in my pocket.
Had it not been for the open arms of his cousin, who he's currently staying with, Brian worries he might still be in a shelter.
It's frustrating. Life is full of challenges. And my thing is, when I make the initial step, or I make these steps to better my life, and I'm going to where I see the sign that says, this is where help is at. You should have the answers. Man, you gotta get the shot over. The do-rag was ugly. You took the pictures, man.
This is Brian's first step toward his new beginning.
We're gonna see what happened at this interview. We're gonna get it, trust me. This is it right here. Stocking shelves. I'm gonna be the best shelf stocker ever. All right.
A door he has worked diligently to unlock as he hopes to defy the statistics that say he is more likely to fail than succeed.
Next on The Race, we'll take you to one of several cities considering new financial help for those who are recently released.
What's right to me is if they've done their time, they've paid their debt to society, restitutions are paid, they've been incident-free, let them live.
Here we go.
It's 9:30 on a Thursday morning in June, and Ron Crosby is on a deadline.
We're headed downtown Cleveland.
He is trying to get 6,000 voter signatures to the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections in Ohio. If he does, it will mean people in Cleveland will get to vote on whether they want a team of ordinary citizens to decide how to use $14 million in taxpayer money come November. It's called the People's Budget, and Ron hopes it passes so some of the money can go toward helping people like him, the formerly incarcerated.
Your children watching you, they're watching you be powerless. They're watching you almost in a failed state.
Struggling.
And just to do that and be able to come face to face with that, man.
Every year, 650,000 people are released from prison. These are people who are looking for jobs and housing as they try to start anew. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, our nation spends roughly $81 billion a year to incarcerate individuals through public corrections agencies like prisons and jails, adding costs for policing and the legal system, and that number exceeds $150 billion. But data shows once those people are released from prison, the funding drops off. In December, the Justice Department announced it would give $100 million in grants to nonprofits nationwide to help those leaving prison. Other than that, most of the funding for the formerly incarcerated comes from the parole system.
We need funding, you know. The money has to go somewhere, so we're hoping to bring some of that funding back to Ohio so that we can create better programs, better assistance, better resources and tools for those who are quote-unquote reentering.
Gina Kenny works for Building Freedom Ohio, a nonprofit that helps the formerly incarcerated.
Oh yeah, I'm having a community conversation.
Alongside Ron, she's hoping the People's Budget passes, so nonprofits like theirs can give more options to those who find they have very few places to turn upon release.
We're all human beings. It shouldn't matter what party or what category or what label we're running with. What's right is right and what's wrong is at the end of the day.
So what's right to you?
What's right to me is if they've done their time, they've paid their debt to society, restitutions are paid, they've been incident-free, let them live.
Nationwide, stigma overshadows those formerly incarcerated. Ron knows. His 25 years in prison followed him to job interviews, housing applications, and he says it hurt him and his chances of finding traction. In 2021, Ron was ousted from coaching his son's basketball team after the league found out he had done time, even though he never reoffended.
You said you got out in 2020?
Yes, sir.
What do you think would have happened to you if you didn't have organizations like Building Freedom?
I think I still would be scrambling. As a citizen in America, you got freedom. I don't have certain liberties of freedom because I'm under what they call civil death. And the civil death is a lot of my civil rights and my civil liberties is being taken away.
Places like Philadelphia, New York City, and Chicago have also passed initiatives similar to the People's Budget, so people like Ron and Gina can put their money where their mouth is. For if they don't, they worry more people will feel oppressed by a system they feel should help them get back on their feet.
It's not just people with felonies that are impacted, and it's not even just their families that are impacted. We all are. Our communities are, and then, you know, us as taxpayers, most definitely, because we're footing the bill.
And when you meet people who have been in the system and they're struggling to get a way out, or maybe they found a way out, what do you take away from that?
Because this is such a complicated issue, right, you can't necessarily paint it with a broad stroke, but at least from talking with Brian and talking to the, several other people we spoke with even off camera for these stories, it's that there is such a lack of a support system that they feel like the opportunities to grow from where they've been gets smaller and smaller the longer they stay out of prison. Their thought is that the system has set them up to fail, so more times than not, they feel like if they do succeed, they're just bound to find themselves in the exact same situation that they were in previously.
Next on The Race, a closer look at prison economics, why some states turn to the private sector to cut costs, and how some facilities use inmates to generate revenue. When Joe Biden became president in 2021, one of the first things that he promised was the end of federal use of private prisons. It was the third federal policy reversal in the span of a decade. Barack Obama first directed the DOJ to stop using private prisons in 2016, a move reversed by his successor, Donald Trump, shortly after Trump took office.
The problems that exist in public prisons are just exacerbated in private prisons.
Thomas Baker is a criminal justice professor at the University of Central Florida. He says while there's no denying it's less expensive to contract with a private prison, there is plenty of debate about whether it works in the long run.
And these companies are publicly traded, so they have to turn a profit. They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to make money. So, for example, in Florida, it costs about $77 a day to incarcerate someone for the state. Private companies win contracts where they bid under $60 per day per person to house them. But how does a private company manage to do what the state can't do for less money? So they have to make decisions. And so oftentimes the things that we see in public facilities around limited programming, short staffing, security incidents that occur because of those kinds of things, private companies do their best to cut those things as much as possible.
Baker told us there is one way that both public and private prisons make money, which can become the subject of a moral debate. That is through the use of prison labor, often for pennies on the dollar.
From uniforms to bed sheets to state flags, U.S. prisons have a long history of profiting from prison labor. The Bureau of Prisons, which houses federal inmates, sells products through its company, Unicor. Unicor brought in $528 million in 2021 alone. Similarly, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice sells products through Texas Correctional Industries. This TCI video highlights different manufacturing centers that operate off inmate labor. The department brought in roughly $82 million between September 2016 and January 2018. The products made by companies like these are mostly sold to government entities like the military or public schools. And correction officials say the training inmates receive will benefit them when they are released. Unicor specifically says its employees fare 14% better at securing employment than those who don't participate in the program. But wages are very low, and some states don't pay their workers at all.
I think it's extremely troubling that the state is making money on the backs of people who are incarcerated.
Michelle Deitch is the executive director of the University of Texas's Prison and Jail Innovation Lab.
And that's true whether it is a profit-making enterprise or even just to operate the prisons on a daily basis.
A study by the University of Chicago found 65% of inmates, roughly 800,000 people, report working behind bars. And more than 75% of inmates surveyed said they have been punished for refusing to work.
But before I came out, man, the last job that I had was a healthcare facility maintenance worker.
Sam Nathaniel Brown spent 24 years in prison before being released on parole. But Brown's last job behind bars forced him to the front lines of the COVID pandemic.
I was the first person in the state in the carceral setting to have to disinfect and clean a cell and an office where a staff member and then a prisoner tested positive for COVID-19. So I was terrified for my life.
Brown says when he refused to work, he was threatened with a disciplinary measure that would have made him ineligible for parole for an additional 8 years. Along with menial jobs, inmates can also have extremely dangerous jobs, like fighting California wildfires. Jamie Lowe wrote a book chronicling the stories of female inmate firefighters.
They're on the ground building the lines around containing the fires. And so they are like ripping through the roots and they're doing really hard labor. That also involves being really close to live flames, and that's terrifying.
Lowe says the state has come to depend on these incarcerated workers, saying they make up a third of the wildland firefighters. And while they have some benefits like working toward an earlier release and much more relaxed security, they are paid just $5 a day for their work.
So they're out there, though, for fire protection. They're out there for flooding. They're sandbagging communities. They're doing hard labor in every extreme seasonal, catastrophe.
In recent years, there has been some major reforms around prison labor. In California, the governor signed a bill to help the formerly incarcerated secure jobs as firefighters after their release by making it easier to erase their criminal record. This past November, 4 states voted to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. The change, in theory, will stop the practice of coercing prisoners to work under the threat of punishment. Those 4 states joined Colorado, Nebraska, and Utah, which already removed the language from their state constitutions.
The race continues next. That'll do it for us this week. From outside the Rio Cosumnes Correctional Center in Elk Grove, California, I'm Chris Stewart, and this is The Race.